Tommy Curran, how are we doing this week?
Fantastic. It's been a great week. How you doing?
We're doing okay. We're not in the desert out there with the casinos and the sports books and the whole NFL world out there. So we bring you in to ask you something we asked you a year ago at the Super Bowl, and I was intrigued by your answer then. I'm curious what your answer would be now. What sort of buzz is there around the Patriots with the whole league descending on Vegas?
Kind of an afterthought and a curiosity to a degree, I think. The league has moved on. I asked Mike Florio if the league misses the Godzilla that was the Patriots that presided over the league for so long. And he said, no, I think people are ready for a change. So they are more of a curiosity than, hey, what are they doing? You're surprised the Bill doesn't have a job. Why would they hire Gerard Mayo and not do a search? I think there's a lot of that, what happens with Mac. There's so much unfinished business that is, interesting for people to talk about in a way that maybe the Falcons might not be, that still don't have compelling storylines to capture people's attention. But they're more of a curiosity than anything that's concrete.
Okay, what's piqued my curiosity, and bear with me here, Tom, because you know that I have a bit of a regional accent sometimes, and I struggle with this man's name. But how much power do you think, or have you heard, or do you observe that Elliot Wolf has in the Patriots franchise right now in terms of personnel?
From observing, I'd say lots and lots and lots. Alex Van Pelt was with him in Cleveland. And you can run through the names, so I'm not going to go through that. But the number of coaches who've been brought aboard who have ties to Elliot Wolf, Alonzo Highsmith coming aboard in the personnel department, he's got a lot of sway. The fact that he was not at the Senior Bowl, but instead involved in some of the coaching and coordinator interviews alongside Gerard Mayo all indicates that. And when Gerard Mayo was asked about, who would be beside him and who was in charge, Gerard said, it's me. I'm the decision maker with help from Elliot Wolf. And then he added Matt Groh. So I think all of our instincts prior to yesterday, when it was caught a buzz that Elliot Wolf is basically the general manager, we all kind of figured that out prior to yesterday.
Why do you think he doesn't have the title? At least yet.
I'm going to try and find that out. Because to me, are you trying to circumvent going through an entire process and just say, you know what? We want to see how these guys perform without Bill. So we're going to say there's no GM and we're just going to let these guys go as the personnel department. And we're going to have an unnamed GM and we'll just call Gerard is Bill. But he's not really Bill because he can't do all the stuff Bill did, but we'll just do it that way. Are they circumventing the process so they can just see how these people perform without naming someone? Because Robert did say that at one point he would say who the decision maker is, who the point person is. You guys probably have the verbiage and the quote from him, but he said someone would be appointed, I believe. So someone has to be the desk upon which the buck stops. And in lieu of that, the Crafts are going to be in a situation that they don't want to be in. And that will be, okay, you guys are the marionettes and these guys are your puppets. If they don't want to be going back to the days of Amos Alonzo Kraft, which is what Dan Shaughnessy dubbed him in the late 90s, you got to get a clear and defined role so that people aren't saying, well, you guys are just, you're trying to run the football team and you said you weren't going to run the football team.
So Gerard Mayo was a pick that they made a year ago, basically. I mean, that was a succession plan. They'd had that in the back pocket for a long time. When did it sort of seem like Elliot Wolf was going to be the guy that was going to get all this? Was there a turning point? Was there sort of a moment in time where they realized, all right, this is our guy. We're not going to find anyone better out there, or we're not trying to find anyone better out there?
I don't know if they ever came to that conclusion, Christian, that hey, we're not going to find anyone better out there. I think they're intrigued by his capabilities. When they brought him aboard, I think it was 2021, you remember Robert Kraft talked about, boy, it sure looks great down there. Everybody's working together. It looks much better. And then they had what at the time looked like a bonanza of a draft, and Bill was the executive of the friggin' year in 2021, according to Pro Football Writers Association of America, of which I am a member. Yet when you shake the rug a year or two later, all those guys that he signed or drafted, many of them, except for Barmore and Judon, to a degree, maybe Godshaw and Hunter Henry, I'm naming a few, but it wasn't the bonanza that it seemed, and certainly the fails in that, Aguilar, Jonas Smith, Mac Jones, now in hindsight make you say, okay, well, who was in charge there? Was it Bill? Was it Elliot Wolf? But I think he has impressed them throughout, but I don't know if they've settled on him. I think he's in basically, one of those probationary periods. But that's the hard thing, Christian. If you're in a probationary period, if you're going to make the investments that they're going to make in free agents, if you're going to pick up that veteran backup, if you're going to make that draft choice at 3 or trade down and add picks, whatever you're going to do, it requires 3 or 4 years to see whether or not those decisions worked out. So probationary period cannot be, well, we went 5-12. We're moving. No, you can't be like that, especially this year. That's why it's so hard again that they went 4-13 and they made this move before they anticipated having to. I don't second guess the move. I wouldn't have wanted to see Bill Belichick take another bite at the apple after, the last reboot in 2020 and 2021 and 22 anyway. But they're there before they anticipated being there, and they're flying by the seat of their pants into a critical year that will determine the rest of the decade.
But, Tom, looking at Bill as the only other alternative as who would be running personnel or in that GM position, could it have been possible for them when they make the decision back during the Indianapolis game to start looking around and saying, what franchise, what front offices do we want to pick from, and actually go through and interview guys basically after that second Robert Kraft press conference happens on that very same day?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And I think, I'm not as offended by the lack of doing so as I think other people are. And I've said this before. Sometimes I look at what's their logic as opposed to saying they did this wrong. So I think their logic is it's worked for a long time. We don't want to uproot all the elements of it. We think these people have a system in place. So let's see how it looks without Bill. They could have said, well, let's get a GM in here. We're already going to go with Gerard. So what do we know in terms of what the GM's going to bring in? We don't want to deviate from what we've been doing entirely. Again, had they not gone 4-13, and they were not anticipating, I would think, Mego, in September and October, especially after the win against Buffalo, I'm sure that everybody was enthused and not saying, okay, we're going to have to fire Bill and reboot the entire system at that point. It just came to pass in the ensuing weeks. So you're right. Why not do an interview process? And on the other hand, too, I think that if you hit them with the truth serum, the Crafts would say it would be too much change all at once. We're not ready for it.
Okay, we'll pick that apart in a little bit. But when it comes to the Patriots and trading back, I know you're a fan of that strategy. We just played Phil Perry last night on NBC Sports Boston. You guys were arguing about, the idea of playing a quarterback right away, throwing them out there to the Wolves. Why are you a fan of trading back this year in this draft?
If you have Laramie Tunsil and Nico Collins and Tank Dell and whoever else the Houston Texans had when they drafted and plopped C.J. Stroud in, do it. Have fun. The Patriots aren't good enough right now, in my estimation. And I'm not 1,000,000% this way. I mean, it's an opinion, but I could see the logic in taking quarterback. But if you are going to put this quarterback behind an offensive line where you don't know who the offensive linemen are, whether at guard or tackles, and you don't have a third down back, and you don't have any tight ends under contract, and you don't have a legitimate X or Y receiver or Z receiver, then you're setting this kid up to fail. So you're going to want to put him on the field, maybe say October or November when the team is 2-5. And how's it going to look? Are they going to be that much better? To me, you're not a good enough team to draft a quarterback right now and waste a year of his rookie contract or batter him. So trade back, get 2 first-round picks, take Marvin Harrison if you want to stay there at 3, but then you have collateral for next year. Do you want to take Spencer Rattler? Rattler. How would you guys say that? Rattler or Rattler?
It's Spencer Rattler, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
There's no right way to pronounce it. It's a preference thing.
I think it's Rattler. I think it's Rattler.
It has to be Rattler. You can say Rattler.
I don't know. I don't think that's his
See
name.
that as it may. We have a finite amount of time, so I'm sorry. If you want to do that, that's fine. To me, they're just not a good enough team to take a quarterback right now and have him sit there and or get battered. And if your opinion differs, I think I'm in the minority anyway, so I'm not surprised.
No, or rattled, to use another word, if you don't want to see him do that. He's Tom Curran. He joins us each and every week here on Jones and Mego with Arcan on WEEI. Tom, enjoy Vegas. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thank you.
See you, Tom.
All right, Tommy
Thanks,
Curran.
Tommy.
As all our guests join us,
Tam.
on the Harbor One Hotline.